Welcome to So Many Comics, So Little Time. This is our podcast review of the first episode of Daredevil Born Again, the new Disney Plus Marvel show in 2025. So, we're going to talk about the very first episode here. And the way we do this is we go over the overview, spoiler free, give you an idea of kind of what we're thinking or what I'm thinking. And then we get into more spoiler specific details. So if you want to just get a feel for what I think about the episode, then go watch it, which I highly recommend. And then come back and listen for the spoilerific details. Go ahead and do it that way. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and get going here. So Daredevil Born Again is a highly anticipated Disney Plus show, and it is well worth the wait. Big fan of the Daredevil Netflix show and all the attendant appearances of Matt Murdock / Daredevil that we saw in Spider-Man movie. We saw in She-Hulk, which is another show that is definitely worth watching. Much different vibe than Daredevil. And, we see definitely kind of a different take on Matt Murdock in the She-Hulk show than we did in the Netflix Daredevil or this new Daredevil Born Again. So again, just you probably know this if you're listening to this, but Daredevil is now part of the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Netflix shows originally were like in this nebulous gray area, and but then they have become fully part of the MCU. We saw that with Matt Murdock appearing in really a cameo in the last Spider-Man movie, and then again in She-Hulk, where he's fully immersed now in the MCU. I assume we'll be seeing much more of Charlie Cox as Daredevil, Matt Murdock, the other characters as we move forward into the newest phase of MCU. So, about this show. So, again, assuming you've seen part or all of the original Netflix Daredevil show, the opening scene, the opening sequence of the new Daredevil Born Again was very, very evocative of the original Netflix Daredevil opener, with this kind of surrealistic look at his helmet, his uniform, other characters popping up. The coloring's a little bit different, but it's very, very evocative of that original show, which again is assuring to those of us who are fans of the original show that this is in the same vein. So that was totally cool. Also totally cool. We have, and if you've seen any of the trailers, you already know this. This shouldn't be spoilers. Main actors from the original show are reprising their roles: Deborah Ann Woll as Karen Page, Eldon Henson as Franklin Foggy Nelson. This part might be slightly spoiler here. We have our initial villain. Actually, I'll leave that name out for a moment. Who you see from the original show: Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. We know he's here, so that's not spoilerific. And we also see Isla Zurer again as Vanessa Fisk, the wife of the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk. And it was nice to see her because originally they were going to recast that role with another actress. I don't know what happened. Something changed. They negotiated a deal with the original actress, so she's back. And the kind of weird thing is everybody, looks older. We've seen Charlie Cox a few times since Daredevil, Netflix, but everyone else looks different. It's like, it's been almost 8 years, I think, since the original show finished, and it's like, okay, they are older. That's okay. People age. So again, general overview. Great cinematography. I cannot say enough about this. It looks and feels good. The angles, the scenes, the street scenes, it all is very it's not Hell's Kitchen-y like it was in the original show, and they kind of talk about that a little bit in the show about Hell's Kitchen versus other locations in New York City. But it is definitely gives you that Daredevil vibe. In a way, it almost makes me think some of the angle shots or camera shots of the angles of the buildings almost felt Gotham-y, as in Batman's Gotham. I wonder if that was intentional, since there are a lot of parallels between the two characters. Okay, so characters are well written. They're written as we remember them. The actors, of course, just fall back into their old roles very well. But the writing, of course, drives the characterizations. And so we see, these are the characters. There's no question of, hey, this doesn't sound like Foggy Nelson. Well, it does. Okay, for example. So, one thing I like about anything Marvel related, because this harkens back to the way that Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, et al. Structured the original Marvel universe in the comic books in the 60s. It's a shared universe. So they would constantly be referring to previous issues or how they met up with this other character in another comic book or earlier in the series we're reading. Similarly, in the MCU, we see a lot of that. So here we see references to past shows, including Wilson Fisk's issues with his mentee, Echo, harking back to the Hawkeye 2021 Disney Plus show and the Echo 2024 show, which featured Kingpin quite a bit. So we have not yet seen, first episode, any comments, references to Matt Murdock's time in California when he had a liaison with Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk. But this is only first episode, so who knows? Anyway, moving on. We're now going to get into more spoilerific stuff here. So we are, if you don't want to hear spoilers, stop now, watch the show, come back, finish listening. So the villain I didn't mention a minute ago was because if you haven't, by the way, I try to avoid trailers, so I don't really know if this guy was shown in the trailers. I don't think so, because it was like in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the show, it's like, oh my gosh, all this stuff keeps happening. And it's like, we see Bullseye and his little target emblem on his glove as he's, and then he spears a fly or a bug with a paperclip, which is like, oh, that's Bullseye, no question. So we see actor Wilson Bethel reprise his role as Benjamin Poindexter, aka Bullseye, and so it's cool seeing him appear. Of course, he's Bullseye's an assassin, so he's going to kill someone, and who he kills, oh my gosh, did not see that coming. Spoiler alert for any of you who haven't read the comics. Karen Page has some bad things happen during the comic books. So it's like, oh, Bullseye's targeting one of Matt Murdock's inner circle. And so it's like, who's he going to get? And it turns out he kills, this really bugged me, Foggy. He shoots Foggy. I was like, oh my gosh. That's starting off the show with a bang, literally, because he's shot. But it's very dramatic. And it reminds me a bit of the shock at the death of Maria Hill, the character, played by Colby Smulders in the opener to Nick Fury's Secret Invasion show in 2023, Disney Plus also. Again, that was a shock. It's like out of left field. Oh my gosh, why'd they kill her? Again, it's like Foggy dying, I'm assuming, is setting up major plot points down the road. But it's still like, oh, did they have to do that? I like that character. Didn't care much for his haircut in this one, but I like the character. All right. So Daredevil fights Bullseye, and we see something kind of significant here because of the shock of Foggy dying. He's on the roof with Bullseye. We've had so much talk in the Netflix show about Matt Murdock's Catholic faith. He will not let him kill. And here he throws a battered, bruised, stabbed Bullseye off the roof. It looks like a 4-story building, and he's intending to kill. Which, given his grief over Foggy and the shock and all that, it's actually understandable. But we end up with Bullseye surviving. How? I don't know. But he'll show up later on. So all these shocks. Okay. So other than the opening battle with Bullseye, the death of Foggy, first episode focuses on our characters. A lot of character building here, character development, backgrounding, and as most of it takes place a year after the dramatic opening death of Foggy. So we have the opening scene, Foggy killed, Bullseye is defeated, almost killed. We then fast forward a year. It actually says a year later. And a lot of this focuses on how Matt and Karen are coping with their loss, which to say is they don't cope very well. Overall, we have good script writing, great acting, very good mood setting. The best scene, in my opinion, is when Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk meet in the diner. They exchange some pleasantries. They both miss Hell's Kitchen, yada yada. But it's tense. The verbiage is real. It's full of foreshadowing, I'm assuming. And it's kind of setting the tone, I think, for the ongoing, at this point, relationship between Murdock and Wilson. And of course, Wilson knows Murdock is Daredevil. Several of the people in the show do, but Wilson knowing who Murdock is a big deal because, he's still a villain. Even though he's presenting himself as not a villain, I don't think he's reformed. So, call me cynical. So, camera angles, I mentioned already, the scenes of New York, Skyline remind me of DC's Gotham. It's also, kind of a dark opening. We see that a lot in the Batman show. So again, a lot of similarities here between them in the way the cameras capture the city. Maybe think of that right off the bat. But New York. New York, by the way, its nickname is Gotham. So take that for what you want. So Fisk is definitely a dominant figure in this first episode. He's running for mayor of New York, which is something he did in the comic books also, Daredevil comics back in 2017. Probably the writers at the time made a comment about another wealthy person with potentially questionable background running for a high office in the year before. And again, the similarities here, we just finished an election, similar situation. Make what you want of that. Assuming the writers are not fans of the current president. So take that for what you want. So, on the personal side, Matt takes up with a new love interest. Again, no reference to his California hookup with Jennifer Walters, a.k.a. She-Hulk from 2022. But the love interest here is a character named Heather Glenn, played by Margarita Laviva, maybe saying her name wrong. Heather Glenn is a character from the comics. Her first appearance in the comics was Daredevil number 126, 1975. She was the love interest of Matt Murdock's in the comics. Again, we don't know where this is going. We'll see. They were set up on a blind date. I just realized that the pun involved there. Wow. Actually, they were tricked into a blind date by Matt's new legal partner. Foggy's gone now, obviously. Kirsten McDuffie, played by Nikki M. James. Kirsten McDuffie is also a character from the Daredevil comics. Her first comic book appearance was in Daredevil Volume 3, number 1, back in 2011. So, overall, what we're looking at here is back up a second. So, there's only real fighting, real superhero action, only real Daredevil costume action is in the very beginning with the Bullseye battle and Foggy's death. After that, we see Matt's life. It looks like he's in the same apartment. Hard to tell because he has lights off most of the time, because he's blind. We see his new legal offices, his new legal partner. He has his investigator is a former cop named Cherry, last name, who also knows who Matt is because he was on the roof right after Bullseye took the nosedive, and Matt had taken his cowl off. So most of the show is about character development, scene setting, backgrounding, and Fisk runs for and wins the office of mayor of New York. So we see, it's not just 1 week of time. It's a whole mayoral campaign, several months, and we see Fisk's interactions with his wife, who has been running the crime organization, the Five Families of New York, as they mentioned in the show, while Fisk was recuperating from his battles with Hawkeyes, battle with Echo, being shot by Echo, all that. They make a reference to it, kind of oblique references, but he, in his comments with Matt in the diner, is like, I don't have any children. I had someone I was mentoring that didn't go well. Matt knows full well that she, Echo, the mentee, had shot him, and so that's an interesting little back and forth, and you can tell Will Fisk is still kind of emotionally wounded by his failed relationship with Echo, who he thought of as a daughter in some ways, even though he used her in his criminal enterprises. So again, the Echo show, well worth watching. If you haven't seen it, I'm assuming there's going to be some more references to that in this new Daredevil Born Again show. So we saw, oh, by the way, I almost forgot, we saw, like, in a brief news clip, the character White Tiger on screen. Fisk is commenting about the vigilantes. He's mayor, he's going to get rid of them. How that happens, we don't know. And he asks Matt in their diner scene, are you going to be resuming? And Matt says, no, that part of my life is over with now, yada, yada. But then Matt also says, I'm watching you because I don't trust you. So, and then Fisk goes into the whole, if you resume your vigilante activities, you will pay. So, definitely setting up a lot of drama for the future. That's just about wraps it up. So with that, we're going to, I haven't seen the second episode yet. I'm going to watch that here after I finish up doing this little podcast. And then I'll podcast the second episode. And overall, this has been a good first episode. Lots of character building, lots of backgrounding, it's as I said before. And I'm really, really looking forward to what's happening. Oh, and again, in the credits, if you pay attention to the credits, they mention John Bernthal as a member of the cast. Well, we didn't see him in this episode, but that means the Punisher is coming back. And the Punisher is probably not going to believe that Wilson Fisk has turned over a new leaf. I'm assuming here that he's going to be gunning for the mayor, which sets up all kinds of interesting possibilities. So, will Matt help protect Fisk? Will he try and bring Fisk down in a less lethal way? Will he team up with Punisher? We don't know. And of course, I'm assuming we'll see White Tiger at some point since they showed that character as well. All right, that wraps up our podcast review of first episode of Daredevil Born Again, the new 2025 Disney Plus show. So with that, everyone, if you like this, please visit our Substack. We have a newsletter. Podcasts are being sent out through our Substack of So Many Comics, So Little Time, and then it's distributed out to Apple Podcast, to Spotify, wherever you get your podcast fix. So, with that, I bid you adieu and watch Daredevil. It's a good show. Back with you later on with the review of the second episode soon. Thank you all.